Okay, I'm going to call to order a meeting of the Paxton Selectboard. Today is Tuesday, May 14th. It is currently 7:00 PM, and we are here at the Public Safety Complex. There will be an executive session to follow our regular meeting agenda items, to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, being the police lieutenant contract pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21-2, and to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, being the town administrator's contract pursuant to the same statute. First item on the agenda is the Select Board reorganization for FY '25. So I fully invite somebody else to take over the chair position.
Kirk, do you want the chair?
I'm out of town too much. So would you be willing to? Do you have the time, Carol?
No. I'll make a motion for the chair to be Julia.
I'll second.
Oh, is that okay?
Any discussion?
Oh, fudge face.
One more year won't hurt.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. All right. Well, we have a reorganization form, which I think is now on the website as a fillable PDF, I believe, I've been told.
The forms know where we're going?
Which I can, no,
Oh, okay.
which I can fill it out later, I guess. All right, so I need a motion for a vice president, or vice chair, excuse me.
Vice. I make a motion for Kirk for vice.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that. Any
So
discussion?
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Got first it, second it.
And we need a motion for a clerk.
I'll make a motion for Carol to be the clerk.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we have the Select Board meeting calendar for FY '25 there. You see the dates. As of right now, we just have the summer session, one meeting per month in July and August. And then we go September 9th, 23rd, October 15th, and it's a Tuesday due to a Monday holiday, October 28th. Same thing with the November 12th and November 25th, and so on. Any issues with any of these dates that you foresee that we need to change?
I have no issues. I've reviewed them. Look okay.
Yeah, they look okay to me too.
So moved.
So we'll continue with this calendar for now. You don't need a motion to that effect, do you? Do you need a motion?
It says approve.
I'll make
Okay.
a motion. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next, we have an increase to the trash collection. So the Board of Health did meet, and what we're running into is, again, increased costs, just like everything is increasing. Our costs for tipping fees have gone up, and so we are looking to increase the trash fee by $1 to be effective on July 1st.
So moved.
Questions, comments, concerns? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. We have some year-end transfers, so we'll go to those. All right, I have one. Looks like just one. Yeah. So we have one transfer. The department making the request is the town hall in the amount of $701.50 from the WRSD assessment account, which currently holds $18,652, to the town insurance account, which currently holds $1,566.50.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that's our transfer. All right, so next on the agenda is to discuss the results of the ballot question and annual town meeting. So as you know, the ballot question was squarely turned down with a fairly significant gap. So we need to decide what we're going to do. We have a proposed date for a second town election on Monday, June 24th, if we want to put forward a new ballot question. And then if that amount is to be different, then we need to discuss having a special town meeting in order to balance the budget. So in that special town meeting, the proposed date is currently Thursday, June 27th. So first question I think we need to talk about is, do you want to go to another ballot first?
It's unusual, but I think how they explained it is that we'll be able to work the special town meeting from the results of the election, so that makes sense to me.
Kirk, any thoughts?
No, I mean, I was thinking the same thing. It's like cart before the horse, so let's just put the horse in the race and then figure out where the cart is.
Right.
I don't really.
So, I mean, I think we've already had one town meeting where we've had the opportunity to present the issue and discuss it in front of the town. And so that's already out, that's already happened. So I don't think we would be remiss in going right to another election.
I mean, I guess the one question I would have is how we're going to get the information out.
Right, so that's something we need to talk about, right? Because I think information needs to go out. I did get a boatload of people ask me after the election, what's the impact of a no vote? Because they didn't know. And so that's a miss by, I think, all of us in not being able to make sure that they understand.
Well, I don't know that, I mean, I agree, but I don't know that I agree. Because we did so many informational sessions in the community, so what are we missing? Like, what are we missing in getting the information out there? I mean, do we have the emails from the light department on every single person in town? Can we send them an email? I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just a question, a general question, but there were so many people that were
we are limited,
completely, you know.
unfortunately, by.
I mean, I was getting questions Monday morning at 5 o'clock
Yeah.
a.m. Like, what does this mean? I'm
Right.
like, oh.
Yeah.
So I'm just amazed at how to get the information out there. It's on the website. We had 5, 6 informational meetings in town. Like, how do we get it out there?
Right.
How do we inform people?
So,
I got a question.
Yeah.
The first department head meeting when we videoed it, is there any way to see how many times that got watched?
We can look on YouTube,
Is it
but if
is it
someone
YouTube?
watched on video on demand, I don't think we have tracking on that.
I meant to look on YouTube today, actually, and I forgot all about it.
So
See if we-
the
because that-
last time I went on and looked at any of the meetings to see how
Yeah.
many views they were getting, it was 100 was about the max of what I was
It
seeing.
wasn't.
But-
So I was wondering if people weren't coming to our informational meetings because.
But we're watching it.
Yeah.
But we had less than, what, was it 588 people that voted? I could be wrong, but
Seven.
I think it was
700
700 and
something.
700
Yeah.
or something. I wasn't counting the
Yeah.
mail-ins.
Right.
I think it was like 773.
But that's what percentage of our community?
20%.
20%.
Yeah. So it's like, makes it really hard to make the best decisions for the most people that are affected by those decisions if only 20% show up.
Right. Yeah,
And that's just the reality of it. And it's probably like that in every town. I don't know,
right.
but
So I think we can
Julia.
talk more about getting the word out.
I
I want to
think-
get through this
Yeah.
agenda
Okay.
item.
Yeah.
So I think we can talk more about getting the word out, but let's make the decisions. Let's start talking about, are we going to, I think we're going to go to another ballot, but what's the question going to be? Right, so what's the number?
So before you do that.
Yeah.
Heather, can you just explain what your thought process is for having the special town meeting second.
Sure. So as we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, right? Doing the election first gives us a definitive answer before we get to the town meeting. We know if the ballot question passes or doesn't pass, and we know which question to go with, right? We go back to last week's town meeting. We know we had originally thought to put 2 articles on the town meeting warrant to go either way. We ended up passing over one altogether. This allows us to walk into town meeting knowing exactly which article we're going to take up, right? Are we going to take up the one that's contingent, or are we going to take up the one that is the reduced services one? It also, in doing it that way, we looked a lot at the timeline, right? Because we're getting to the end of the year. A lot of people have holiday, vacations in June, you know, like our town clerk's on a cruise. So we had to balance people being away, such as herself and the moderator. We also had to balance the deadlines for things, right? So for the election, it's 35 days in advance. For the town meeting, it's 14 days for the STM. Then you also have registering to vote 10 days prior to both of those. We tried to avoid weekends, right? Because especially if the town clerk's away, even on vacation, we need to make sure someone else can fill in to help with the registering to vote. And then the other deadlines, such as filing for early vote or vote by mail and so forth. So part of it was just trying to look at those 2 pieces and figure out strategically how they line up to get us to the end of June. The other thing to keep in mind, the reason we wanted the town meeting before the end of June, theoretically DLS will let us go up till September 15th, but it makes a lot of people very uncertain about the budget,
Yep.
how to spend when you get to the beginning of the fiscal. Plus, the other concern is our free cash certification runs out on June 30th. So if we go into July, I don't know, maybe we could get special permission, I'm not sure, but absent special permission to carry it over, which I don't think they're doing beyond COVID time, we would not have that funds available to balance the budget if we got to the reduced service budget.
Right.
So that's kind of how we line the 2 things up. We just thought we'd be more prepared walking into a town meeting with the 2 numbers. I think one of the usual arguments to do town meeting first is because we can give some of the information out.
Yep.
What we saw in this election, we had almost 50% of the vote come in from early vote, right? And a lot of those ballots even came back before the town meeting even happened. So people voted before the town meeting, which is usually when we're used to getting the information. This is also the second round, right? So folks have had the information at this point. You know, as Kirk said, we've done umpteenth in-person Zoom information sessions. We've done one on, I think it was like April 8th before the select board with all of the departments. So we've really tried to get the information out there. And I think people are going to have as much information as they're going to have either way for either of those events, regardless of the order.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a few options, obviously. There's really an unlimited number of options for what you want to put up for a number. The way that the numbers came in from the polls, it was a pretty wide gap.
Yes.
In terms of what we have, you know, in terms of appetite for an override. And that suggests to me that there are a number of people that are not going to approve 1.44 and are still not going to approve 1.15. And so I think we need to think about what the next step is going to be going forward.
Well, we all agree we need an override.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And the least we could do is just to cover the budget.
Yep.
I've talked on and on about that's not going to help us
Right.
in the long run.
We can cover the budget at 840 and do an override for 840. We're coming back next year for another one, another override. There's just, I mean, unless something miraculous happens, the chances are,
slim.
you know. So at 1.15, it gets us a little bit more, but we're still going into next year with a deficit. So,
Which means that next year's override could be even greater.
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. I think that you're going to have a better chance of passing the lower the number is, the better your chance is going to be. And where we have a tight timeline before the start of the fiscal year, we may want to take a conservative approach. With the 1.15 number, we know we are already starting off in a deficit next year anyways. And so it might be prudent to simply go with the 840. But I entertain any discussion. It's not an easy decision to make.
No.
Any,
Can we recognize Mark?
Can we discuss it first?
Yeah, let's discuss it as a board first.
I mean,
can we speak to this point?
We're just going to discuss it as a board first.
But I think you should have some
I will
input
ask for your opinion, but we're going to discuss it as a board.
after you pick a number.
No, no.
I think you're making a mistake. I think we're going to be in the same situation if you do what I'm listening to right now going forward as we just came through. That's why I'd like to speak to the points to prevent that same mistake from occurring.
Let's
so,
Let me
Hear us
speak.
out.
Let me
so my thought is that at the 800, whatever number,
yeah,
that gives us no flexibility.
right.
Like zero flexibility to do it, like the generator here at the DPW or the town safety complex, which runs our 911,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
If that happened again next year, we have no 911. So going with the 840, like that concerns me a lot. I would like to have, like anyone else in town, a little bit of flexibility, reserve funds, emergency funds, whatever you want to call your funds that you have at home. You know, in the rears or in the pocket to take care of some of those issues so that we don't end up in a situation where it's not going to be pretty.
What number are you comfortable with?
I don't, at this point, I don't really even
It should not be a
know.
select board decision. It should be a finance committee decision to put forward to the select board, not the reverse. You can put a number forward right now, and the finance committee may disagree with it, and we're gonna have the same problem. You've taken the budget process away from the finance committee, which is where it should be. If you want me to cite the bylaws, 2 sections in the financial management policy section, that the responsibility of the budget rests with the finance committee. We should put forward the number that we recommend, not the reverse. That's why we're in the position that we just have. The rejection Monday had volumes of different angles in terms of what the voters were saying. Put the responsibility of the budget back with the finance committee. Don't hijack it a second time away from us. Let us do our job. You can reject it, you can disapprove it, but you're doing it bass-ackwards, and we're gonna have the same problem all over again.
With all due respect, Mark,
We're on television.
we
Excuse me?
have,
What'd you say, Carol?
We're on television.
We're on television. We're on television.
We're on television?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
okay.
You think I'm gonna change my mind and
No.
retract what I said? That's a big problem, and I'm thinking all the finance committee, I'm only here as one member, but finance committee members viewing this right now are shaking their head just like I'm shaking my head right now. This should not be a decision. Let us recommend it. Who's to say when we revisit the budget, who's to say the deficit rests at 840? Maybe we take an entire new look at the budget and the deficit is 750 or 850. Let us determine what the budget deficit is first. Let us make our recommendation to the select board, and you approve or disapprove.
Heather,
Yes.
would you please tell us who is responsible for setting the ballot question?
So a couple pieces here, right? So Mass General Law says it's the select board's obligation to call an election, call the amount for the ballot question. To Mark's point with the Finance Committee bylaw, I believe the new bylaw, if I remember when I sat down and went over it with Brian Folk, he had mentioned that, we put in kind of a timeline where the budget was due to the select board before the warrant was closed.
Right.
The original warrant piece. So, FinCom's job is to advise the town, advise the select board, what amounts to put forward and so forth, and, what to do with the budget. So I think there could be debate of whether or not the budget process is still open or whether the budget process is closed. Also, I think, Mark, FinCom already gave a recommendation to the select board of the 1.15. And that was the recommendation from the FinCom. The problem we run into is, again, we're on a timeline, right? So to avoid not having a budget for July 1st, which legally we could do, Division of Local Services, and DOR says we can wait till September 15th, I can tell you doing that will cause all kinds of panic, particularly with my finance department trying to figure out how to track something if it's not set yet. Because there's two different budgets, $840,000 apart right now, right? Between the proposed budget and the reduced services budget. That would put all kinds of chaos on all of the departments not sure what they're doing. It would also put additional stress on employees for some departments that are already relatively tight.
Right.
So that being said, as much as, the FinCom's job is to put the budget together and advise the select board and the townspeople of how to go on it, it's up to the select board on whether or not to call an election, and if calling an election a ballot question, what that number is.
Was finance invited to today's meeting?
I did mention to Mark last week about the meeting. I think you thought it was too soon to call a meeting with,
No, I sent out an email today and copied you. We're asking for the Finance Committee to meet for 3 successive Wednesdays, May 22nd, May 29th, and June 5th, all with the intention of having our work done on June 5th in well enough time for the meetings that you have right here. We're not suggesting that we set the dates for the meetings. We're not suggesting that we write the ballot questions. We're
So-
suggesting that we do the budget that will include a recommendation to you as to what that override amount should be.
Do those dates work?
no. So the
no.
the date, the 35 days in advance is a Monday, May 20th at 5 PM. So just like last time, right? We have a hard deadline legally to get something to town clerk with what that number is.
Right. And we specifically wanted to schedule the select board meeting for immediately after the ballot vote so that we could start the process in motion to make sure that we have the ability to move forward within the fiscal year. And unfortunately, your timeline doesn't put us there.
So is there any way to expedite your
Yeah.
timeline?
Yeah, you tell us specifically what you need, and we'll
So
respond.
Heather, when do we need to
We were going
set
on the
those dates?
assumption that what we did met this particular timeline. If we need to be corrected, then we'll correct our course.
So we would need a decision by Thursday, right? We'd end up having another special, wait, no, we can't. We'd have to do it on Friday. Because we're already, what day's today? Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, so we don't have time to call it for Thursday. Or it would have to be early in the day on Monday, because Monday at 5 PM is our cutoff to the town clerk. So we could do a Zoom meeting, we could do something of other sorts if the select board was interested or inclined to do something like that. But again, the problem we run into, right, is that 35-day mark to be able to get everything in. There's a lot that happens in the preparation of an election.
Right.
Question? Or comment? It appears we're on a timeline that it doesn't work for what you want to try to accomplish. So I have some questions I'd like answers to. If the town does not have an approved budget, doesn't it go back to a 1/12 of the previous year's budget?
No.
So it can't do that at all?
So it's only a school thing. It was a one-time piece for COVID. We checked with the DLS and DOR, and they confirmed towns are not permitted to go to a 1/12 budget.
All right,
That
so-
being said, DOR said we have until September 15 to formally set our budget, but
Okay, so I guess
it's
that's,
not wise to
thank you.
enter July 1 without a budget. And remember, going into July 1st without a finalized budget, whether we're doing reduced services or proposed, we lose all access to our free cash on July 1. So we can't, if we're using that to balance the budget, we can't use it once you get to July 1st.
And what is the expected amount of free cash?
No, that's what we've got.
No, but I mean,
No,
what's the
That's what we have
historical
right
amount?
now.
it's what we've already got certified.
It's what we have certified
Which
already.
we-
It's the amount certain,
And
already
what-
known.
all right, what is-
500,000.
Yeah.
That's what's there. So if we don't have that in the budget, that's gone July 1st.
So we
Correct.
won't be able to tap into until it gets certified again, which usually is until late September, early October.
All right, well, if we have until September 15th to, what are we finalize? I'm just getting confused here, listening to all these dates. I think you're really trying to,
So the question comes down to a few parts, Neil, right? The first is whether or not we go back for an override. If we don't go back for an override, then we just go back to a special town meeting, have to call at least 14 days away from now. We go back, we approve the reduced services budget or some other variation of a budget, using whatever, but not using any override funds, and then we have a balanced budget and we're good. This is, remember, why we originally had that article on town meeting. In the event the override didn't pass, so we had that backup option. But then DOR said, no go, can't do it.
And we passed the override question, the town
Yep,
meeting.
yep, and we
So we
did.
couldn't do both.
Yep, they didn't want us to do both. So at this point, if we're going back for another ballot question, it makes sense to do the ballot question before the end of June and also to do the town meeting before the end of June. So July 1, you start, you know what your budget is. Think of it from a business perspective, right? You'd hate to run a $15, $16 million business, start the fiscal year, you don't know what's coming in for revenues, you don't know what's going out for expenses, but you know you have people reporting to work on July 1, and you're not sure how many hours they can work that you're gonna be able to cover, right? Puts you in a panic mode. We don't wanna do that to our employees, we don't wanna do that to the staff, we also don't wanna do that to the residents. We don't want them to think the expectation is this is what your services are gonna be for the year, and then all of a sudden, nothing passes and we have to reduce services, and then they end up being more substantial, because now we have to reduce even further to be able to cover the costs we incurred that we wouldn't have incurred had we known that was the budget. So I don't mean to be too verbose on this one, but there's,
This is municipal finance.
yeah, it's just, and we're just lucky enough, we even have the timeline to be able, our town meeting was early enough that we have the timeline to be able to take a second shot if that's what we're gonna do.
Right.
So I have a question. Could we ask finance to go back and look at their budget, proposed budget, in time to meet with the select board
So the-
prior to a town meeting? Or whatever the timelines are to back that
Town
up?
meeting's fine.
So town meeting, yes,
We
absolutely,
only have
there's,
14 days for that.
yeah,
Right.
we have
It's
time
the
before that
35
would
days
have
for
to
the
be
ballot.
closed.
So perhaps we should just charge the finance committee to come back with a more reasonable budget. Since they want to have control of the budget. It's just a thought.
The finance bylaw specifically states that they are in charge of the budget.
Okay, so then let's put that responsibility on them.
The,
The problem is,
the problem is we need to set a
Override.
number for the ballot.
That's the finance committee's
no.
problem. I mean, I know we have to set the number.
Yeah.
But it's based on the finance committee's recommendation.
We
But we
can base
can't.
it on the finance committee's recommendation, but the finance committee can't meet in
Meet.
time for us to be able to do that. That's the problem we run into.
That's why we
That's why
already
they were-
arranged for this meeting tonight.
That's why they're invited here tonight.
May I make a suggestion from the back row?
You
Sure,
may.
do you want to, Mike?
Absolutely. Please.
So we're supposed to be in crisis mode, and we're gonna debate back and forth who's meeting when? How about we all get well, you all get together as elected officials and appointed officials, and have the finance committee meet for 2 hours on Saturday, from whatever, I pick any times you want, just an example, 11 to 1, and you have a select board meeting with the finance committee at 1 o'clock, and you figure this out before Monday. Because otherwise, this is gonna drag on, and I'm sorry, but going without police coverage at night and a day without the ambulance is unacceptable in this town.
Agreed.
So it's time for the two boards to get together on Saturday. I say Saturday because if the meeting has to go all day, I was careful, I'm on TV. If it has to go all day, it goes all day. But your jobs are to figure this out. And if we got a tight timeline, get it done.
I agree, Peter, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Saturday.
I definitely don't disagree. Can we meet
Try to
on
do it, just do
Saturday?
it.
Can meet on whatever day. It's obviously, open meeting law generally recommends avoiding weekends because people have hard times to meet, but there's nothing that says you can't meet on a Saturday or on a Friday. I would avoid Sunday. You're going to get really cranky people at that point.
Yeah.
Can you get a,
What about Friday evening? Rather than- It's Wednesday tomorrow, isn't it? So you have time to, have time, don't you? 48 hours? Yep.
We can post any time tomorrow for Friday.
Do you think the finance
I would-
committee could get a quorum together Friday?
I don't want to say whether I could get a quorum or not. In all due respect to my good colleagues on finance, getting a quorum is a challenge. They have family commitments, job commitments, they travel. I couldn't even think of committing to Saturday this evening without conversing with them.
Friday.
I would have trouble on Saturday,
Friday, I say.
Friday. Saturday, I could probably make that work.
I am willing to make either day work. Friday I have,
As long as
I'm
it's
supposed to
after-
coach my Little League team on Friday, but there are other coaches that can fill in, and I am very much willing to be available.
Well, I'm tied up till probably 7 on Friday. So,
Okay.
actually 7:30, because I've got soccer with Grace.
Well, if may I make a suggestion? The select board's interested in definitely holding a town election prior to June 30th. Then perhaps what we do is tomorrow we post the meeting for Friday, whatever time, on Zoom even, if that's easier for people. If Mark's able to get his folks in a quorum, we can even post it as a joint meeting and see if it works out as a joint meeting. If not, keep the agenda item on there to set the town election and then next steps on the warrant.
At least it's posted.
So at least it's posted. And then if Mark says, no, I can't, but I can get people on Saturday, then on Thursday morning, we can cancel the Friday meeting and post it for Saturday, right? Like we
Yeah.
can,
Yep.
we get at least we get something on. Because Mark, if you talk to your folks and they're like, there's no way we can get a quorum on Friday or Saturday, then we're back to the same boat where
Right.
if the select board wants an election prior to June 30th, then you're going to have to make a decision.
Well, I think it comes back to if the finance board wants to present something to the select board to vote on, then that has to happen, obviously, pretty quick.
Right. Right. It's reminiscent of what we already went through, where it was just a timeline issue. So I'm fine with that if we want to go ahead and post a meeting for Friday. You said, what, 7:30?
7:30.
7:30? 7:30 work for
I'm
you?
fine, yeah.
And then, with any luck, we can get a finance quorum on Friday at 7:30. And then,
Is that going to be by Zoom?
do you want to do Zoom or in person?
I'm either way.
fine either
I'm
way.
fine either way.
I'm fine either way as well.
I just want to make sure we know what
Whatever.
we're doing.
I think we're more likely to get a finance quorum potentially if we have a Zoom option.
Well, I was going to say you're more likely to have me on a Zoom option on Friday night at 7:30.
Okay.
It's a hard night for coverage.
Yep. I'm fine with Zoom if we think, we got to do what we got to do at this point, right? So,
We
Yes,
can
if
even do
we-
a hybrid if you want.
Yes, if we want to have the election on that day, and there's no wiggle room for that.
My concern with not doubling down and pushing forward is the insecurity that we're gonna find with the town employees,
right.
like, straight up. They're gonna start looking for other places.
They're already looking.
I'm aware of that, but
Yeah.
didn't wanna necessarily advertise that on TV.
Well, if I can speak to that, to allay that fear, I will go out on a limb and say that I believe that the Finance Committee will put forward a number to cover the deficit so that there will be no cuts in services or cuts in budgets. I don't know what that number is, but I can say to you, I think with a lot of confidence, that they have no interest in cutting budgets so that services are impacted. And to speak to Mr. Bogren's point, we don't want ambulance service interrupted. We don't want a lack of police coverage. We want all that. The question that we've all learned from this whole voting process is there's more to it in terms of what the voters are saying and thinking and need to know. So we need to take that to our Finance Committee, sort that out, and come back with a budget which will eliminate any cuts in services. That, I can promise you, will be the case.
And within that is the question, how can we better get the information out to the community? I mean, unless the community is just not willing to engage.
Well, picking up on Carol's reminder, if I can, Julia, in terms of the information sessions, I'll go on record as saying they were an unmitigated disaster. There's no other way to describe them. You had 3 at the fire station. You had one person show up for the first one, one person show up for the second one, which was the same person that showed up for the first one, and nobody showed up for the third one.
So
You had a Zoom meeting that nobody logged in, only the hosts were there. Let me just finish, Kirk. The other thing is, the question was raised is, how can you have budget information sessions if the Finance Committee is responsible for the budget and they were not part of the presentation? That was a missed opportunity and a faux pas of great significance not to have us included. As it turns out, we're glad we were not included because it was such a disaster. But that whole thing has got to be rethought because it was not successful at all. You're going to say, well, we had 12 or 13 at the library. 750 people voted. What's 12 or 13 people? In 12 or 13, 6 of them were at the COA presentation a week before. So you probably touched about 10 to 15 people with 10 to 15 different sessions. We should have been part of that presentation. We should have been part of this thought process, and we weren't. And I think that was a big mistake. How can you have budget presentations? These were department heads making presentations. Department heads make presentations to the Finance Committee of their budget. They made it to the public. And some of it was a little bit of scare tactic that if we don't pass the override at $1.4 million, we're going to have cuts in services and no police service and no ambulance service. That was a bad message, and people are not stupid. They saw a lot, they learned a lot, we all took a lot from this. There's more than just a no vote on the override question. There are a lot of other underlying messages I took and I got from that particular vote. We need to do things differently than we did this last go-around.
Understood, Mark. But if the Finance Committee had sponsored all those informational sessions, do you think the turnout would have been much different? The question was, how do we get more people in town engaged?
Well, I don't
That
have an
was the-
answer to
that was
that
the
this
question.
evening, but I can tell you, doing what you did and trying to do it the same way next time is not going to work any better
So,
or any differently.
so as the chairman of
Engage
the
us.
Finance Committee,
Engage
how
us
would you
in
have
what
done
our
it
thoughts
differently?
are. You could have had 7 people sending out emails to 30 people. There could have been a lot of different things that could have happened.
So as the chairman of the Finance
And you wouldn't
Committee,
have
how would you
gotten the
done
phone
it?
call at 5 o'clock in the morning in terms of what's going on, because we all got the same phone calls. We all got the same emails. What does this all mean? What does this all mean?
So,
How did you react to that?
What's that?
How did you react to that?
How did I react to that? I explained to them what I knew at that particular time, and what I felt, and what I thought. That the $1.4 million was not a cut in service, it was a stop to this particular override, to send it back to the Finance Committee, which is what I just said 10 or 15 minutes ago.
But the underlying problem is we're still talking about 10% of the residents of Paxton.
20.
20.
10. Like,
Historically, though, Kirk, you might end up with 300 people that vote in an election.
Peter, you had your hand up? Sorry, Julia.
Go ahead, Peter.
How were these information sessions marketed?
Heather?
What do you mean by marketed? I mean,
Well, in other words,
advertised.
so I'm no longer back there, so
Yeah.
I'm not privy to this stuff. I happened to drive through the center of town and saw Meet the Department Heads meeting. And somebody had said to me, "You're gonna go?" And I said, "No, I know all the department heads. I was part of the hiring process. There's no reason for me to go." And it was Mark Savasta who then said to me, he goes, "Well, you do understand that they're gonna be talking about the 2.5 override at those Meet the Department Head meetings." I had no idea. Like I said, I know the department heads, so I didn't pursue it any further. So I guess that's what I'm asking is, how was the word gotten out that these were 2.5 override informational meetings?
So those were 3 of the sessions that were done. And really, it was about bringing people in to meet the department heads, those particular sessions.
Different.
And it was to allow them to come into the building, meet the individuals, and then see, like, they
There's a
did tours.
presentation.
They did, yeah, and, so that was what, it really was a meet the department heads meeting. Were they available to answer budget questions at the same time? Absolutely. In terms of the other information sessions, Heather, how was the word gotten out on those?
Sure, so we announced them at the select board meeting, we put them on the website, I think Lori did a couple announcements to let people know they were coming up. We tried to print out the notices, the problems you run into, Peter, is that we're restricted as municipal employees as to what we can say, right? So
No, I
even legal,
I understand that
Yeah.
part of it,
so,
but there's an awful lot of people out there who had no idea that you were having them. And not that you would have gotten 700. I know you wouldn't have. But you certainly could have, I think we could have done better. I went to one of them, and there was 6 of us. Well, there was 6. There was 6 of us, and I was, well, Carol was at that one, so she was there. And I just feel like there should have been more there, especially when you're talking about a property tax increase of $800 or $900 or $1,000 on the average home.
Yep.
so I
So-
think,
so as a past selectman, what would you have done, other than putting it on the website?
Well, that's
Putting
a
it on
a
the
hard
town
question,
sign,
Kirk,
putting it
only
on-
because you're asking me on a spur of the moment. I wasn't part of the process right along, where I could
Understood.
brainstorm with people, so it's a hard question.
I'm just open to ideas to how to get more people in town to be engaged and be involved.
I'm more than happy to
And I'm
help.
not one of those people that
Sorry.
gets on the town website every day, even though I'm a selectman, and checks for the updates. But how do you reach people? And that was the original question that I asked Mark.
Which is why I'm asking you how
is
it's
valid.
marketed.
So, my understanding of the budget meetings, Heather was going to present the budget as recommended by the Finance Committee. That was my understanding, and I think that's what it was, correct?
well, I would probably leave out the words recommended by the finance committee, because I don't think I said that at any point, Mark, because I didn't have that stamped, right? But I said, here's what the budget is as proposed, this is what was proposed, this is what FinCom has.
So I thought it
had
was the
before them.
Finance Committee's budget that he was working on. And at the same meeting, what entailed was in the budget was how we were going to pay for the budget, which was the override.
Yes.
So that was my understanding. Then there was 3 meetings here on a Saturday that the department heads took on themselves, and they decided to do that.
Right.
Heather wasn't, I think Heather may have
Not
done-
involved,
Yeah.
with the.
So those were more meet the departments. If you've got a question on what we're doing, come and ask us, because at the finance meeting earlier, the fire chief was put on the spot because the finance committee didn't even realise what was going to happen with these budget cuts. So that's when I think the initiative came. Come and meet us, come and talk to us, let's see this is what we do. And I was disappointed in that turnout, but I'm knowing from information meetings we've had in the past, I knew it wouldn't be a large turnout.
Right.
The school turnout, at the school, one of the later ones, I thought there might have been a few more people there, but there wasn't. And I think that was a missed time. That I think that should have been more people. But the other thing is, there were meetings that finance committee members could attend if they wanted to, and I'm sure if you'd been there, someone would have asked you a question. But there was only one occasion when a finance member attended. And I don't know if he meant to attend, but he did. So, but
So-
again, you're a resident, so.
So giving it 5 minutes of thought, and it's just 5 minutes, so bear with me. But you have a firefighters union, you have a police union. It's not illegal for them to
Right.
distribute information regarding the override.
Correct.
I would have asked firefighters and policemen in union responsibilities, obviously not on duty. I would have had them outside right as the entrance going into the school, handing out a piece of paper saying, here is the repercussions of a no vote. That's just one idea, very
Yep.
quickly off the top of my head, but that would have been something. It would have been a start. As far as other things go, if you give me more time, I'll be more
Yep.
than happy to try to.
Yep.
I would question that whether that's informational or fear-mongering
Well, I don't know
and
that,
intimidating.
they are, as unions, they are allowed to do that. right?
Understand,
They can't
understand.
present information that's incorrect.
but there was
But-
someone that stood up at the town meeting who asked a very legitimate question, which was, how many people that are in this room, by a show of hands, work for the town? And I thought that spoke volumes.
So can I just ask one more very quick question? Because you said, was it informational or fear-mongering? Well, I went to one of the informational meetings, and that was the information I was provided. If we don't pass it, and we have to go to a reduced services budget, then we are not going to have overnight police coverage. Then someone representing the fire department got up and said, if you do not pass it, we will have a day and a half without ambulance coverage. That's not fear-mongering at that point. That is, in
That-
fact,
that's
presenting
reality.
information.
No, I understand that.
Yep.
but-
And
But people, and again, I'm just viewing this from how I feel like, me personally, would feel like pulling into a parking lot with a bunch of police officers or firefighters or DPW workers standing there.
there are
It
limitations
would,
to
it would
that.
feel intimidating.
You're missing the point. You can get anybody to stand there. I don't care who stands there.
Somebody
All
who's
right, so
standing there
wait-
in a uniform?
Wait, Neil.
All right,
All right, so
They can't, if the unions aren't the same as the town, they're not using town money.
all right,
the
just,
the
can
union,
I?
wait, please wait. The unions are able to do this, but there are significant limitations, right? So the limitations are they can't do it in uniform. They would have to do it, obviously on their own time and whatnot, so that they're not using any
Okay.
public resources. They can't represent themselves as a public employee at the time that they do it. And so, but that doesn't change the fact that they are still capable and able to do it. And I believe that they're aware that they are able to do that.
Well, they
But
did
we
it-
can't influence whether they choose to do it.
Well, they have done it in the past.
Yeah.
but- So I know. from
And
there.
I do appreciate your comments. I'm just, we're just having a conversation.
But
All right, so
But I
just,
don't think we can send an email out the morning of and say no to the vote or say yes to the vote.
I think that you run into the same limitation.
I think so. I hope that didn't go out.
all right, comments. First off, years past, the Boy Scouts used to deliver the town warrant. Put in the mailbox the weekend before the meeting or the week and a half before the meeting. That hasn't happened in how many years? Since COVID?
No.
Did they
Since
do it?
the Boy Scouts didn't want to do it, I don't think.
There's maybe, right now, when I went to the bottle and can drive, there may be 14 scouts.
Okay, all right, I'm just saying that, but there was a vehicle to get the information out to the community. To follow up on that, I went to town hall the day of the meeting to pick up a warrant, and Donna gladly handed it to me. She said, we're taking these to the meeting. And that night, we ran out of warrants because of the attendance at the meeting. So, in terms of trying to get the information out there, nobody knew what was going on. And that's shame on us as a community. We just didn't get it out there, because everything was in that warrant, the entire budget.
So there was one major thing missing from that warrant, as required by the Finance Committee bylaw.
Their recommendation or their support?
In the bylaw, it states in section 3.8, contained within the annual town meeting warrant shall be a cover letter describing major changes in the present budget from that of the previous fiscal year, as well as commentary concerning any fiscal matters deemed important to report by the Finance Committee.
All right, but wasn't that because they never got their budget to you folks? It was kind of the process just got kind of hijacked at one point.
Well,
The town meeting is always the first Monday in the.
Carol, I
May.
understand, but what I'm saying is, I sat here at a meeting, a select board meeting, and Heather announced that evening that at 5:30 the thing was done. So there was no point in having that joint meeting between select and finance, because everything was done. In terms of, to follow up just on the fear mongering, it wasn't that if the 1.44 didn't pass, we were going to have reduced services. I think there was some play between 840 and 1.44, because at 840, everything is funded. There are no cuts to services.
You have to
Police are there
remember that-
24/7, ambulance is there 7 days a week.
you have to remember that the question at the ballot isn't 1.44 or 840, right? The question at the ballot is 1.44 or nothing. So a no vote is a
Understood.
reduced services, right? Yes, we have enough time to be able to get back to and try again to try and get something passed,
Okay.
which is part of the reason why we got things moving as quickly as we did. But we had a budget calendar set early on, and in that budget calendar, it laid out the dates that the warrant would be opened and closed. In the Finance Committee bylaw, it says, "The Finance Committee's work on the annual budget shall be concluded in sufficient time to meet warrant article deadlines established by the Select Board." That didn't happen, right? Unfortunately, as Mark indicated, there was difficulty in finance getting a quorum to be able to meet. That delayed the whole process. That's part of the problem that we're running into, right? Is that the inability to get a quorum at finance is delaying the process and not getting the budget done.
There was discussion, though, about the amount of the request, and that Monday evening at 5:30, it was done. It was 1.44. And there was never any other discussion. You couldn't go backwards. And I still don't understand what Brian Folk told us, or Folk, at the meeting right before town meeting, saying that you had the right to put it in a four-corner position to change the thing. The ballots were out.
No.
People had seen the 1.44, and 244
nothing
of
to
them
do
were
with the
mailed
ballot.
in based on the information that was in that ballot packet.
The
So,
warrant articles have to be set on the warrant by a particular date in order for it to be ready for town meeting, right? Those articles are decided on by the Select Board. We try to have joint meetings with finance in order to collaborate on this process. Unfortunately, of the 3 joint meetings we had, there wasn't a quorum available from finance in order for us to be able to conduct business effectively and have that back and forth. So the Finance Committee members who were not present at any of those meetings didn't have the benefit of hearing what the Select Board had to say on any of the information. And so when finance met, they went a different direction. But unfortunately, we're still on a timeline, so we still have to make these decisions.
Wouldn't it have been easier, when you look at the 1.44, to make something more palatable to this community? Anything less than, I mean, I think you were told before that number was picked it was going to be too high. There were rumors running around town when you had that letter that went out, it could be as high as 2.5. And then we wouldn't have to service the entire debt, what was it, levy, limit, whatever, we could spread it out over years. What did you explain to me before the town meeting? Like Boylston did their $6 million override, but they were only going to apportion it out so much over each year for the next 3 years?
West Boylston
West Boylston, thank you.
they're recommending a $4 million override. They're appropriating $600,000 at the current town meeting. That's what they're looking to do. A 2.5 override does not raise your taxes by a certain amount, right? A 2.5 override simply makes room in the levy limit. What's appropriated at town meeting is what changes your taxes. And the setting of the tax rate is what changes your taxes. there's a lot of misunderstanding around what 2.5 truly is and what an override truly is. And I think that there is a significant amount of information available online for people who maybe don't understand this, including there's a
Maybe that
primer.
should be the informational session that we have with the public, and put it on the e-signs that everybody doesn't seem to read,
Yeah.
to the tune of 89 grand.
DLS puts out a levy limit primer on Proposition 2.5. It's all explained right here. If you look at West Boylston's website, they actually do have a nice listing out of exactly what it means. And, you know, so getting back to your point about the four corners, right? So the warrant articles have to be written in a particular way, right? They go to town council, they get approved, it comes back to us, we, you know, each of us make our recommendations. If there's going to be a change at town meeting, right? So if somebody decides that they're going to make a motion on town floor, that motion still needs to be within the four corners of the original article. This is a legal term, which essentially means that you cannot go outside of that warrant article, right? So it has to be, all you can do essentially is change the numbers in the article. Heather, can you add anything to that? The four corners?
Yeah, so the four corners, when you're writing an article on a warrant, you're giving the townspeople notice of items to be discussed and the parameters of that, that article. So, for instance, a lot of moderators will always usually find it permissible to reduce the amount. So if you say we're going to do something for $1 million, you want to do it for 900,000, they'll generally allow it, but they often won't allow you going higher than that number. That being said, if you have an article on town meeting warrant to buy a carpet, the moderator usually doesn't give you allowance to expand that article to buy a carpet and replace the roof. But he might say, okay, carpet and baseboards, right? It's got to be close enough to what you gave the people notice for. So when you're doing, you know, the issue, and I think town council, Mark, worked with you on this as well as the moderator, is with doing a motion to change the amount was less than, that was totally fine. But we weren't able to then add in appropriations to other stabilization accounts because that should have been separate articles.
Right.
And the notion of, you know, did people have notice that this was happening? So the four corners is just, you know, was there enough notice given in the words used to give people a reasonable expectation of what was going to happen? So, you know, again, if it's saying talk about the carpet, floorboards make sense because they're kind of related to the carpet. But what do you mean the roof?
Keep the carpet dry.
So, but I think that's as basic as I can get. Is that helpful? Okay.
Yeah, and in essence, we took a vote on that, and it failed by 3 votes, I guess.
Yeah.
71 to 68.
Yeah, it's close.
So getting back to what we're trying to accomplish by having
Yes.
a meeting on Friday.
Yep, so I think ideally we have a meeting on Friday. I'd love for it to be a joint meeting. Again, we tried 3 times to have joint meetings with finance so that everybody can get on the same page. That didn't happen before. I'm hoping that we can get that to happen now. We'll go ahead and post it for Friday, and hopefully finance can be there. And if, Mark, you find out that they can be there on Saturday instead, then I'll happily move it to Saturday.
So why don't we just post 2 meetings, one for Friday, one for Saturday?
And then we can just cancel which
Yes.
one.
And then just, yeah, that sounds,
Just a clarification, so just Zoom or Zoom and in person?
I'd like to do hybrid, I think.
Okay. So I have that, I'll just post it for Friday and for Saturday. What time Saturday?
Let me just check my, I don't think I have anything going on. I'm thinking like 10 a.m. You think that would work?
That's in the middle of the yard sale. I'm just saying that in terms
Oh,
of.
is the townwide yard sale
Yard
Saturday?
sale Saturday.
And I've got a communion
Well, we can
So it
try
would have to be
Friday,
like afternoon then.
late.
I mean, we can try Friday first and see if Mark's able
I
to.
don't mind later on in Saturday.
say 2 o'clock?
Yeah, we have to,
Bit later.
we have to make sure that the townwide yard sale is over because that creates a lot of traffic.
I could do 6 o'clock Saturday.
What time's the yard sale over?
2 o'clock.
Is this room available Friday and Saturday?
We'll have to find out. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I'm on it.
If not, we'll
If
all
not,
be
we'll just go
hybrid,
fully Zoom.
or we'll go to the
You can find
COA.
out
Yeah.
tomorrow. You don't have to worry about that until
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah, we can worry about that tomorrow. So what time are we thinking on Saturday?
2:30,
2:30?
A little bit later.
3 o'clock?
How later? How much later?
4.
4?
Okay.
Mark, do you think that there's any, I mean, we've got two options, so Friday at 7:30 PM or Saturday at 4? And-
I would give it 50-50 at best for both.
Okay. But we can try, right?
Oh, yeah, I will definitely try, but
Okay.
it's, I'm just being honest in terms of what I think.
I know.
And that's not of any disinterest. These are busy volunteers, first of all, and they have all sorts of commitments.
We are too.
So, not that.
If the
the
meetings
select board-
don't happen, is the board, the select board, prepared to put another warrant article through next Monday night in terms of its 35-day advance notice?
No, it's too late.
That's
It
why
has
we've
to be
got
done
make
by,
it
it has to
weekend.
be in Lori's hands by 5:30 on Monday to call an election.
Right.
so-
So what will have to happen is we are, as a select board, are going to meet on one of those two nights. And I'm hopeful that one of those two will be able to get a quorum from finance. And it'll be a joint meeting, and then we can hash it out on a joint meeting.
If
If
not,
for
we're
some
gonna have to
reason
go
there
our
is
own.
no ability to get a joint meeting from finance, we're under the gun. We have to put something forward.
So can I speak to that, Julia? Yeah, if that is the worst case, that we just can't pull together meetings at challengeable times, I think we all need to admit that before we leave tonight. Friday night at 7:30 and Saturday it's going to be a challenge.
Not
Is-
not
is-
not easy days.
The message I would give to the select board is twofold. One is, give us a number that we can live with, that both groups can sell to the public. And I think what happened previously is the messaging was wrong. And the messaging was not that if you don't pass an override, ambulance and police service will be affected. The message was, if you don't pass the
So I
$1,440
disagree
override.
with you on that, Mark.
Thi-
I do.
This, well, let me just finish.
Go ahead,
That
finish.
was my takeaway, and that's the feedback that I've got. We all have our own constituencies, but that's the feedback that I got. And people were able to look at the delta and say, well, the deficit is 840, and we're asking for $1,440,000, and that's what they rejected. They're not rejecting an override, because nobody, voters, select board, finance committee, police, fire, all departments, nobody wants cuts in services. But give us a particular, and we've asked for it a couple of times, when we were making our presentations, that number's gonna be hard to sell. We had 840, we had 1 million, we had 1,150,000, we had 8 options, and the one that got picked didn't sell. And what I'm saying, if we can't put together a meeting, you gotta come up with a number that we can sell to everybody. Notwithstanding, this is the be-all, fix-all, we're gonna have to be back next year. We need to look at 1 year at a time right now, and get something that they can live with, and then we all come back to the table next year and work our hardest to avoid it. But it's gotta be a number that we can live with.
I think that's what we're getting at
Yep.
before we stopped our discussion, because it was getting lower and lower. That was my understanding.
Yep.
So I think that's where we were going before we got all
I
the
do want-
discussion.
Well, I guess my message is that right now, the deficit is 440.
840.
So, 840. So it'd be easy for you to say 840. But there are some people, department heads included, that are indicating, well, maybe it's gotta be a little bit even lower than that we can sell to the public. And that's what I'm saying. Don't paint us into a number that we have other information that we're getting from other sources that we're right back to not being able to accept the number that you put forward. It's got to be a little bit of input, and we'll work as quickly as we possibly can to get that number. But if we can't, the ask and the request and again, the ask and the request is, give us a number that we can sell to the finance committee, sell to the public, and get this voted on and moved on.
I just want to make sure that I clarify the record a little bit on the messaging with the 1.44 number. I don't believe that anybody ever said that it had to be 1.44 in order to avoid a cut in services. The reason behind the 1.44 is to avoid going into next year with a deficit. I'm fairly certain that messaging was clear. However, I recognize that these are not easy concepts for everybody to understand. It is, municipal finance is a special kind of an enigma, and it is not an easy thing for everybody to wrap their heads around. So I can understand where there could be misconceptions, but I want to make sure that I correct when you say that. The messaging at 1.44 was, this is how we avoid going into next year with a deficit. It's the same thing I said at town meeting. It's the same thing I've said while we're sitting here. If we have to go for a big number, it would be nice if we could go for a big number and avoid starting next year with a deficit when we're already looking at how are we going to have to make those ends meet. Now, the public has spoken, and regardless of how that misinformation got out to them, the public has spoken, and the gap to me was wide enough to suggest that we have a problem. That it's not something that they want to fund, and so that's the situation that we're now in. And it is what it is, but we gave it a try. We set the election early enough so that we could give it another try, and so that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I'll end by saying this. They don't want to cut in services, but they don't want excessively higher taxes either.
Totally understand.
We got to accomplish
Yep.
both of those, and I think $1.4 million missed on accomplishing both of those. And as you said, as we've all said, the voters have spoken. So we need a better number.
Well, there was some discussion at one of the finance committee meetings that don't let perfect get in the way of acceptable. And I think that's kind of the road we went down. You wanted 144, saying that's a good number. And maybe an acceptable number would have been something other than 1.44, one of the other 7 options or 9 options. or
Yep.
whatever
But
was on that sheet.
1.44 wasn't just pulled out of thin air. Julie had a good explanation for where that number.
But it did
came
not
from.
come from one of the finance recommendations.
No.
It was one of the, they had 7, and that turned out to be the
And-
8th one.
And when we decided on that, all 3 of us agreed on the 1.44, and we all said at that time that we thanked the finance committee for their efforts and all the work that they put in, but sometimes we have to agree to disagree. So we weren't saying that we were right, and I think we said at the time, Julie and I said, we'll give it a try, and we might have to come back. And that's where we are now.
Right.
So
What
we,
would have happened at town meeting when the amended motion was made if the select board said they would support that?
Right.
What would have happened then?
What would have happened
Yeah,
if the finance
man,
committee would
speak
have
it to me,
supported
'cause
our
again,
number?
I don't understand all this municipal finance. I'm one of those en masse that voted yesterday that don't
So-
have a clear understanding of municipal finance.
so if the board, I wasn't there, but I watched the video, if the select board had agreed to go to the lower number,
Yep.
and it passed there, if it failed, it didn't matter whether it failed or passed at the ballot, we'd still be coming back for ballot.
I'm not sure I agree. That's what I don't understand.
Because the
You
number
told me
was
the
already,
different- it's a
the
different
number
number.
was already
We
set
lowered the
on
bar.
the ballot.
We,
The number was already, had to be already set on the ballot.
Understood.
so we hadn't agreed
We'd
on.
still be back here.
But you would have, just like the lights before, the town, if they didn't vote for it, then you'd have to go back and you'd put 1.1, whatever it was, 1 point.
We'd be doing the same thing as we're doing
1.15?
now. We'd be doing the same thing
We'd
as
be
we're
in the
doing now.
same boat.
But you'd have a number, you'd put it forward, and I would probably say that might be a little more palatable.
But we just heard that 1.1.
But here we are, right? So
I think what's happened is you've poisoned the town. This is my take on this. I think they're gonna, anything above 840, they're gonna just, they are out for blood right now. So.
Where
and
do you think that's come from?
I think everybody's taught, they heard the things, the numbers were out there, and I'll be honest, I talked about the numbers. I said, deficit's 840. Let's go there. Now, did I talk to 680 people? No. I just don't have that long a reach, even on my cell phone and my little email account. I don't have that kind of reach. I can tell you one thing, I talked to most of the neighbors on my street face to face. And those people, I think they were concerned. They were looking at what their taxes were going to go up based on their assessed values. And as I said, the tax increases forever. That rate becomes your new number.
So you lobbied against the override?
I absolutely did.
Okay. As did finance.
I have no idea what finance did.
Well, I don't want to speak for finance, I'm going to tell you that I did, as a private citizen, every chance I did.
As a
And-
private
And right
citizen?
now, and you know that the finance committee was embracing $1,150,000, and personally, as a finance committee member, I wanted a lower number. But I went with the will of the finance committee, which was $1,150,000, and that's the motion that we made.
And you said during the finance committee meetings that you wanted an override to pass, right?
At
Well,
115, yes, I was there.
115, 1 million, I was
Yeah.
a champion of 1
I
million.
believe you said we all
And now
agree
I'm a
that we want the
champion,
override
from what
to
I've
pass.
heard from the feedback, now I'm a champion of 840. Because I think that's what the voters want.
And Kirk, if something goes bad, we'll put up a GoFundMe page for Paxton to pay for a generator if that happens again.
It's not
We'll let
funny.
the citizens come together and they'll just send in their little grocery money or whatever.
Wish it was that easy.
So,
If it was, yeah, if it was.
so, Mr. Love, when you was advocating for vote no, you did it as a private citizen?
Yeah, when I went to the ballot box,
No,
I'm not
no.
going to the ballot box as a finance committee member.
No, I'm
going
saying
as
when
Mark
you-
Love, private citizen.
No, when you said vote no, when you said you was advocating for vote no,
Yeah, I.
What did you
I
do?
was advocating as a private citizen, yeah.
in what way?
Just the same thing as Neil said. He
What,
said,
sending emails out?
what's that?
Sending an email out?
Yeah, I sent an email. I've had this discussion with Julia. I sent an email out as Mark Love, private citizen. I have the right to do that.
Was
What was the
the
heading?
title a finance committee perspective?
I've written to you, Julia, and you wrote back and said, thank you for this explanation. That
did.
was the finance committee's perceptive. That was theirs, $1,150,000.
Did the
And I went
finance,
on record as saying that we opposed the $1,440,000, which we did, which we voted 3 times in opposition of it, and twice at the annual town meeting, so 5 times. So, yeah, the finance committee's position was $1,150,000, period.
I've been to
My
many,
personal one is different than that, but that was the finance committee's position.
what about,
So if I was writing that, as you just said, I would have said something completely different.
did the finance committee vote no on ballot question 1?
I don't know how they voted.
Okay.
did the finance committee ever say that the town has a spending problem? Because I've been to
Yes.
I've been to
Yes.
lots of finance committee meetings.
We speak of that all the time. The
Because-
finance committee is absolutely married to the idea that we used to have a revenue problem, then an expense problem, now we have a spending problem.
But don't you provide the budget?
Say what?
Aren't you responsible for the budget that we represent? to the-
We've been trying to advocate that we are responsible for the budget.
Okay.
But the budget did not include $1,440,000, which included $600,000 of which the select board was going to be allowed to spend as they saw fit. The finance committee didn't agree with that.
And so we spend that as we feel fit. I think it's a town decision. It goes to the town, not us. We can't spend anything without it going to the town. And if you think we
Well, yeah,
can,
but
you've got something wrong.
If you're the liaison, if you would like me to bring up that particular topic at the next finance committee, I'm happy to do it, and let the other committees, so I'm not
Yeah.
speaking on their behalf, chime in on that.
Yep.
Happy to do that.
I'd like to just make a public note that of the entire budget, what's not encumbered is a very small percentage of that we're actually discussing. Because the Wachusett Regional School budget
Done. It's
and
accepted.
all the town encumbrances, all that takes up a huge percentage of the budget. So we're
51%.
We're talking about, I just don't want people to get the idea that we're arguing over the whole budget, because we're really not. We're arguing over what we have control of, which is not,
Somewhere between $7 and $8 million.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So I just want to throw a statistic out there and read into it what you will, right? But you say that the town of Paxton has a spending problem. Paxton, if you go on the DLS website, there is a budget per capita statistic. Paxton's budget per capita is number 320 out of 351. So 31 up from the last in terms of what we spend per person in town. So I just want to throw that out there. I don't know where the information is coming from or what you're basing that determination on, that Paxton has a spending problem. But in terms of comparison to all the other cities and towns in Massachusetts, Paxton spends less on their budget per capita than 90% of the other cities and towns in Massachusetts.
So can we move on,
Yep, let's do that.
please?
All right, so we're going to move forward from number 5 because we're going to try and schedule those meetings for Friday and Saturday. Yeah.
Is that including the special town meeting, whether it's required or not? Or does the select board want to call a special town meeting and, open up the warrant and then have opportunity to close it in a week or so?
I think it does make sense to go ahead and call the meeting at
Yeah.
this point, yeah.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to call a special town meeting for Thursday, June 27th?
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion?
just one thing. Is the 27th,
A Thursday?
yeah, I don't like a Thursday, to be honest, but if that's what we can do. Not for me personally.
Well, we could do it at
No.
8:30 and have the election
I know,
first and
I
then start
know.
at that point. And everyone's all in the same room.
Yes, I realise that. I'll go with it. Like I say, it's not for my agenda, it's just that generally we meet either Mondays or Tuesdays, only because end of the week gets more difficult, but
We had to try to schedule the moderator and also give Lori
Yeah.
enough time to prep
That's fine.
and wrap up
Okay.
from one thing to move to the next.
so was there motion?
So there was a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so can I get another motion to go ahead and open the warrant for the special town meeting on Thursday, June 27th?
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And as far as articles are concerned, I think that we can probably defer further conversation on that until after we have our joint meeting with Finance.
And we're okay until June 10th?
Yeah, I was
For
going to say that
closing?
we're all good. We will need to close it by June 10th.
Yep, so the closing date will be June 10th,
It's
which is
14
important for
14 days.
for
posting.
Finance to know as well. Yep. Okay.
Can I just ask a question? On the ballot, can we add the planning board open position to that? No,
Lori already looked.
did she?
No go. It had a different timeline window than the 35 days. Nice try, though.
45 days. Yeah.
Yeah, it was beyond the 30.
45 days.
Yeah, it was beyond the 35,
Yeah.
so we didn't have enough.
Okay.
tried that. You thought about it.
Good effort. All right, so now we have consent items to get to, and there are 6 of them. I will go ahead and read them as per usual. Number 1 is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on May 6, 2024. Number 2 is to sign the road stabilization letter for FY24 to approve the amount of $121,841.
Just thank you.
Yeah,
Peter, thank you for coming.
thank you.
And your input.
really
We-
appreciate
We do
it.
appreciate it.
Call, I got a suggestion for an article.
Sure, sure, yep.
Thank you.
Number 3 is to appoint John Slavic. Is it Slavic or Slavich?
Slavich.
I think it's
Slavich. I just want to, I try to be respectful of people to pronounce their names correctly. To the Cable and Communications Committee until June 30th, 2024. Extend the appointment for David Stoika to the Board of Registrars until March 31st, 2027. Number 5 is to accept the resignation of Jeffrey Kent from the Planning Board effective May 7th, 2024. And number 6 is to accept the resignation of Jeffrey Kent from the position of Veterans Agent effective June 4th, 2024. Are there any objections to any of the consent items?
No objections here.
Did you, sorry, I missed this.
Yeah.
The stabilization letter, is that FY24, did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Is it FY24?
is that FY24 or FY25 that we need on that stabilization letter?
Oh, for fiscal year?
Yeah.
Probably should say FY 2025.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
So let's, yeah,
Just
so I'll
that
also,
amendment.
number 2, yeah, is, number 2 will be just,
Amendment and so moved.
Good catch.
Yep, sign the road stabilization letter for FY '25 to approve the amount of $121,841. Okay. So hearing no objections to any of those with that amendment,
Aye.
I declare that they are all approved. Would you please send Mr. Kent a letter thanking him for his service on the planning board and as a veterans agent?
They'll be greatly missed by the veterans.
Oh, the veterans, absolutely, yeah, yeah. And select board correspondence, we have, so no updates from any town committees, boards, or departments scheduled for today, right? No old business, so under select board correspondence, I do have a letter from Travis at the, as far as the water department is concerned. We heard, I think, about this once before, but he wanted to share that the Paxton Water Department received 2 awards by the state of Massachusetts at a recent awards ceremony. Travis was unfortunately unable to attend due to employee shortages and an extremely large workload, but our past water foreman received the awards on the department's behalf. The first of the awards received states the following: the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Paxton Water Department, on behalf of the residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I am pleased to confer upon you this governor's citation in recognition of your 2024 Public Water Systems Compliance Award, honoring your compliance with the drinking water regulations in 2023 and the previous 5 years. The second of the awards received states the following: 2024 Public Water System Award is presented to the Paxton Water Department for outstanding performance and achievement in the consecutive community systems category in 2023. From my understanding, this is Travis, from his understanding, there are over 1,700 public drinking water systems in the state of Massachusetts, and they give out somewhere around 50 awards annually, so it's nice to see we are among the top departments in the state, even if we are a continuous system. And he shared copies of the 2 awards. So I guess I'll hold those up for Scott to be able to hopefully
Zoom in on?
zoom in on. But
Awesome.
great work to our water department. Congratulations on receiving these awards. I think the town should be happy to know that they're in such good hands. Okay, town administrators report.
Sure. So first of all, Julia, you already mentioned we have a planning board vacancy. Neil, does that still work the 28th?
I'm sorry, what's
Does that still work the 28th for a joint SB planning board?
Well,
meeting,
and if we have
potentially?
candidates, now, I was going to ask the select board, because we had an abundance
Yep.
of candidates on the last time. I think if you might want to reach out, excuse me, personally to the individual that was not selected
Yep.
last time for appointment, I think that would be great. We would love to have a full board as soon as possible.
Sure.
So the 28th is fine with me if we have candidates.
Yeah.
I know it's on the webpage. Heather did a great job getting it posted as soon as Jeff's letter went in. And again, here at your select board, on behalf of the planning board, I mean, we had a thank you of him, but he's been a tremendous asset. All boards have different complexions when you look at it, and he was definitely the detail guy. He would dig into everything, and we really, really appreciated his efforts in getting to the bottom of a lot of questions. It made my job a lot easier, so I am truly going to miss his attendance at some of these meetings. But we've got 3 or 4 other people who will hopefully, fit in and pull their load, so, pull their weight.
Okay. So that is set for May 28th at this point, and we've already reached out to Jason about
have.
30 seconds ago.
Okay.
So we'll see if he has any interest in
Okay.
that.
When I spoke with him a couple of months ago, just asking what his future was, he said he's on 2 other boards in town. They were appointments.
I think he's on zoning. Isn't he on zoning?
No, he's on the DPW,
Oh,
and then he's on.
EDC and DPW.
EDC, right.
Yeah, so, I mean, if either of those is the impediment, please remove him. Say, we can remove you from one of those if you'd like to go to this, because we would really like to have him.
I do think that the other boards are lighter lifts than planning, so I mean, think it would be great if he could do all of them.
That's
But
wonderful.
totally understand
Right.
the priority for planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's scheduled for May 28th at this point. Hopefully, we'll have some applications, but we wanted to comply with our policy and get it posted enough
Yes.
time ahead and so forth.
For sure.
Memorial Day, there's other board and committee openings always, and those can be found on the town's website under boards, committees, and commissions and volunteer opportunities. Community happenings, Memorial Day, Monday, May 27th. The details are up again. Same thing as last year, Paxton Days and Summer Jam, June 15th from 10 to 8. And we'll have a variety of food trucks, which include Off the Hook Roadside Eatery from 11 to 2, and the Ultimate Grill from 1 to 6. And Seven Saws will be doing alcohol from 3 to 6. Townwide yard sale.
If I can just give Donna a whole lot of credit,
Sure, you can do
because
that.
she does this every year. She does have some help, but she organizes all of this every year. And this year, it looks to be a particularly good year in terms of everything that she's got lined up. So pray for good weather.
What I was going to say, weather gods, that's all we need is weather gods.
But, I just want to thank Donna for all the hard work that she puts in to try and give the town a really nice way to celebrate, so.
I agree.
Thank you.
Townwide yard sale is May 18th from 8 to 2. Cheryl Chapman is running it this year through Lions Club. Her phone number's on here. I think she knows I published it, but if not, she will now. Departmental updates, building department. So we went through the various building permit numbers for the past couple months, because I haven't done one of these in a few months yet. Last month in April, we had 7 building permits, a deck, 3 roofs, a bathroom reno, a chimney lining, and 1 other miscellaneous one. Our numbers are looking pretty good. Last year, we had for FY '23 a total of 300 building permits, and I don't mean building, electrical, gas, plumbing, sheet metal, wood stove combined. Combination of those. This year, so far at the end of April, we're at 268. And we've been averaging years past and this year about 25 per, so we might meet that number or be slightly over the 300 for the year, which is good. Town building work, a couple projects we had going on, records building roof, so shout out to Gordon Snyder and Brian Brosnahan again. They worked hard to find a vendor to repair the leaking records building roof, the slates that were up there, and they had to redo the copper
Flashing.
flashing, thank you. I was waiting for someone to help me. Copper flashing at the top as well. As of right now, Brian Brosnahan footed that bill for us. He actually was kind enough to make the donation for the time being of $2,250 to be able to make that happen. That is also.
What can we do? I think we should send him something.
Can't we pay for that? We've got enough funds available to pay for that?
So they volunteered to do it. They wanted to keep things off of some of the procurement requirements, which is why they asked to do it that way. And then they knew, just how hard the finances were for the town and so forth, so.
Yeah. Can we send him a thank you? Can we put something together and I'll sign it?
Can we come in?
Absolutely.
Or have him come in? Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally
yeah.
thank him.
I think he's also working with Miles Funeral Home to try and get a little reimbursement, shall we say,
Yes.
for,
Help share the donation.
Yeah.
That would be
Doesn't matter.
nice for him.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but the project wouldn't have been done without Gordon
No,
and Brian
exactly.
working together.
A huge thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an
I
amazing
would like
step up.
have them both come in and thank him.
Yeah.
So 150 feet away from that, we repaired the town hall columns that were falling apart. When they got repaired and replaced this week, I asked Donna if they were supposed to have lines on them. Turns out that was just the cracked paint.
Yeah, so they weren't fluted, actually. Yeah.
I thought it was an intentional texture. It was
No. Who did the work on that?
not. Cornerstone.
Oh,
Yep,
it looks
for
lovely.
$8,243.
Oh, dear.
So those were installed on Friday. They went back in. But the good news is now they're structurally sound and the paint's not chipping.
We're taking care of a historic building.
And the building's not falling down, so
Yeah.
we're doing well.
Yeah.
DPW building lights to the tune of less than $6,000, but we had to have a lot of the internal ceiling fixtures replaced. The lighting fixtures, because they're old and they're not able to be repaired anymore. And the guys wanted to see.
Yeah, okay. I suppose.
Public safety building, we had a pipe. It was a 4-inch sprinkler pipe that failed, and the estimated cost to repair that's about $3,500. So I put these on here just to let folks know that, these are some of the repairs that we don't anticipate year to year, but just trying to maintain our aging buildings. This is where we're at. Personnel changes, just some changes over the past couple months. Some we've updated right away, and some, I haven't done a report in a few months. Administrative positions, Amanda Dorenzes, who was with us as the Assistant Treasurer Collector, left about a month and a half ago or so. She had been working as the assistant treasurer collector for the past year, helping out in that office. Jeff Kent, we thank him for, again, his veterans agent position, as well as for serving on the planning board. DPW, we're currently hiring for a mechanic heavy equipment operator. We did hear today that we actually anticipate our mechanic, who was deployed overseas, to be coming back over the summer. So that's pretty exciting. That's a
that's
little
good
sooner than
news.
we thought, but
Yes.
very exciting. That doesn't change anything about hiring the mechanic heavy equipment operator. The retirement in the fall, we didn't replace that position per se. We moved things around and we opened up a heavy equipment / mechanic, so someone had dual
Yep.
functions. The water department currently has some turnover. We have the water foreman left for another position. And our operator left for another position as well. One had been serving us for about 3 years, one about 6 years. So we are in the process of interviewing and hiring for those positions. Any questions on personnel? I'm sure I missed some, and I probably missed some in the public safety side. I was just trying to capture off the top of my head. Finances, so I just did a quick run through. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I figured we can go into more detail next month when I have explanations of exactly where I think things will land. Internal transfers, we've been able to utilize those a lot this year, so we've been able to avoid reserve fund transfers, as well as avoid the large number of year-end transfers we usually have at this time of the year. We've done 18 internal so far, and a lot of them just happen to help because you have to pay more in supplies and purchase services, or, something changes, with the contract for IT. We went from originally having an outside purchase service section to a IT consultant, had to move money and shift it around. So I just listed in the report just the top 6 ones, so $10,500 for just that purpose for IT. Workers' comp audit added was $6,500 and some change. Medicare was $5,000, transfer from health insurance lines. It was higher than budgeted. Insurance for general liability to injured on duty for adjustment and costs. Public safety complex, we've been transferring unused custodial wages to both the public safety building maintenance as well as the other building maintenance. So anything that we're not utilizing for that, we're still putting back into the buildings. So moving those around. Expense update, so as of the updated budget of 5/13/2024, and if you look at the report online, you can actually link right to Larissa's report in that. Expenditures should be around 82.69% as of this last week. Keep in mind, it wasn't a payroll week, so things aren't exactly as balanced as I like them to be when I do these. So we took a look at anything that was over 85% or under 75%, and the only things I found of note to mention, elections registrar's line, the overall budget's only at 60.42, but that didn't include the local election we just had yesterday. So that will significantly increase that to the majority of those funds. Town insurance will be doing another year-end transfer to pay the last of the insurance adjustments. I think we did that tonight. If we have any additional deductibles or changes in schedules from now through the end of the fiscal year, we'll have to do some year ends because we're out of funds in that overall department. Street lighting, we added Olivia Knoll in the middle of the year, so that added a little bit more on the cost. Cemetery department budget right now is at 89.69%. This is the time of the year they usually spend. We expect that they'll likely need a year-end transfer. And the veterans agent benefit line, that's the amount that we have to pay based on whoever's in town who receives the benefits that we get reimbursed for at 75% at a later date. That number's higher than what we had budgeted. Things go up, people's personal expenses go up. We don't always do a perfect job of that, so we had to do a year-end transfer for that amount. Revenue piece, same thing, it's linked there. The revenue is only updated right now up to March 31st. It usually takes finance a couple weeks after the change of the month to be able to catch up with the prior month because they have to wait for interest and all of those pieces to balance out in the special accounts. Building permits, as of the day of the report, we were at about double what we expected for FY '24. We did raise the the cost this year, especially how we did plumbing and gas, but in general, this is just building. So that's still a good sign. Also means things are up and hopefully people are building things. A lot of them's roofs though, so we don't really get new growth for roofs. You're looking at me, Mark, just saying. If you're looking at, oh, that means new growth, proportionally it should be, but it depends on what they're pulling permits for. Investment income, so we're making bank on investment income this year. We budgeted a conservative 17K when we did the recap, and it's already at 52. But that's because Donna's very aggressive with investing funds and moving things around to get the right interest rates, most competitive, and interest rates are very high right now. But the moment they adjust,
Then we're not going to see it.
that number's not going to be there. So, while it's there, that's excellent.
I am hearing that they're already looking at bringing interest rates down,
Yeah.
maybe as early as next week, if I remember correctly. Mark, you probably know better than I do, but that's what
Have you
I'm,
heard anything on interest rates dropping?
No.
Okay. Cemeteries, so this income's running lower than 60% as of the end of March. It's a hard line to predict, right? It's a business we hope we don't have to do, but, when we do it, we do make revenue from it. So, but those numbers are much lower than they had been the year before. Grants, not too many updates there. Recreation, we're working on the basketball hoops. It turns out, like I mentioned last meeting, it is the full 27,000. So we're working on those right now to at least procure the sets of basketball hoops that Kathy specifically wants with the extendable down, going out, coming back, going up. One set's easy to get, the sideboards. The long ones, long court, not so easy based on how far they are out and they're looking at redesign. So
okay.
we're working on it. Other earmarks are still working through. DPW earmark, we're working on getting the septic tank design done now. We got to figure out which vendor to go with, and then we'll be moving forward on that one. The Meyer Wellness Grant, we're wrapping up. That had, replacement of the carpet, chairs, shades, and so forth. ADA grant, Select Board awarded that. We're still working on getting the vendor to sign the contract and get started on that project. And then we have the other grants that are still just out there and wrapping up. The state earmark of funds for the zoning bylaw rewrite. So we had another steering committee last week. I think we have another one next week.
We do?
We're making progress. I think we're just about done wrapping things up. I would like to see, I haven't chatted with Neil yet, but if Neil is okay with it, if we're already doing a joint SB planning board meeting for the 28th,
Oh, that's a good idea.
that might be a good one to have Jane just come in and give the select board kind of an overview, high-level overview and planning
All
board.
right, let's kind of,
We can talk offline.
no, we'll table that till we have the next meeting next Monday.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then because I'm not sure, we're about 95%, we're not ready yet.
Okay.
Well, let's see if we can get the other 5 next week.
Well, all right, well, I'm being generous at 95, so,
I think particularly, though, I was hoping that if anything else, we'd be able to have the discussion relative to the map of the zoning.
yeah, because that's where we're going to need your support.
Okay.
There are some changes coming. We won't quantify them in terms of large or small, but there are changes coming. Suggested.
Proposed changes.
Yeah, suggested changes, thank you.
So, but I think though, if we already have everyone in the room, we know how hard that is to get everyone in the room at the same time.
Correct.
It might not be a bad opportunity to cover, a little bit of ground. And then in the summer, planning board will still have their work summer into fall of doing public information and hearings on all the zoning changes, and hopefully this will culminate with a special town meeting in the fall, where we will do essentially one article for each chapter. Well, it's easier that way, because that way if anyone wants to hold anything, we can, but we'll talk about it. Anyway, whatever Neil wants to do. But we'll put the zoning on for the fall, so hopefully it's, most of the meeting, and people have an opportunity to just spend that time, and it doesn't bog down a
Right.
annual meeting into like 4 nights.
Correct.
We don't want to do that. Updates procurement, like I said, ADA, COA doors, that's completed. I had it on here because it was voted at before the town meeting, so we didn't have a public well, we had a public meeting, but it wasn't televised. So that was awarded to I don't know,
Them.
KOLODZIEJ
Yes.
Construction.
I did not, I was unable to pronounce that one.
Yes, and I've had several people pronounce it for me. They have great reviews. I've talked to many municipalities who are over the moon with their work.
Good.
To the tune of $27,200. The other two bidders were Cornerstone at $28,900 and FRG at $31,600. And then the paving contracts are out. We ran into a little snag this year with Mass DOT. They wanted a little bit more from us than we did last year, no problem. So we had to extend the bids out. They were originally due tomorrow. Now they're not due till next Thursday at noon. We had to repost in the newspaper, a much lengthier post that Mass DOT wanted to see. No big deal. Next year, we have notes all over this process. We'll just start it in, like March. It will be good. From there, it's just procurement, the rest of the fiscal, right? So we have the line painting coming up. We have diesel fuel coming up, heating oil. We do one of those through CMRPC, but they usually have a vendor they award that's like out of the Cape. So we usually say no, thank you. And we opt to do our own much more local procurement where we don't have to wait for someone to come up to deal with us from the Cape. So that's where we are with those pieces. Job openings are posted down below. Mechanic, heavy equipment operator, police officer, summer director K1, assistant, summer director, summer CIT, summer program counselor, water foreman, water operator.
Okay.
That's all. Any questions?
Could I have a clarification? You mentioned Olivia Knoll, and
Yeah.
I didn't get what you were referring to, so
The
tell me.
street lighting, remember? so
Correct.
We generally get a flat rate cost of what we're gonna pay the light company each year for street lights.
Okay.
But we added Olivia Knoll to their docket in the middle of the year, so we
Correct.
didn't have it as part of our original budget. So it added a couple $1,000s more, but we budget that street light line to the penny. So like Tara gives us a number before we do our budget season for the following year.
But there
She
was
says it's X dollars.
3 streetlights. I mean, at $6 a light per month, I mean, we're not talking thousands of dollars.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, did I say thousands? It was a couple $100s.
Thank you. All right, I'm just,
But, sorry, my apologies.
that's all right, I'm just saying, I mean, we used to bill the developer at,
You were wondering what that light looks like, weren't
yeah,
you?
$6.85.
Yes, my
per light per
apologies,
month.
misspoke.
So say $30 a month, and 12 months is $400, $360.
So it was a couple $100s more, but the problem is that we literally budgeted to the penny, so.
Okay,
we
all right,
had
I
to-
just, thank you for the clarification, that's
No
all. I
worries.
heard the
My
number.
apologies.
Okay.
All right. Is that the completion of your town administrator's report?
Unless there's any
All right,
questions.
very good. Public comment? Mark?
Could I suggest that the matter of the records building and Mr. Brosnahan, is that his name? Contribution of $2,500. Suggest that maybe capital depreciation reserve fund or Wachusett Regional School assessment be a source of maybe looking to reimburse him?
So we
I think
could,
his gift is pretty generous,
It is.
but
It's really.
I would think that that is something that the town should really pay for. And I also thought that the roof was estimated at $5,000. So is the price come down, or has he contributed toward half of it?
So I think, nope, that was the total price. The
Yeah.
work's already done. I think part of it is the reason they were inclined to do it that way, and Donna did suggest that, they're going to, Miles Funeral Home had been interested in helping out with that donation previously. We checked with legal counsel, and when you do a direct donation where, not that the select board has to accept, right? But a donation where they just pay for the work directly, you're not required to follow all of the procurement laws. Prevailing wage, yes, but the rest of them, no. So they were able to do it for a little bit less.
And I don't challenge that, I'm just trying to find a way to reimburse him. And I know capital depreciation has to go through town meeting, but we got one coming up, a special
Right.
town meeting, just a suggestion.
no.
That's what I said.
I think it's well-intended and well-taken. I'm not sure how that would fall in terms of the capital improvement bylaw, where it wasn't considered by the committee. And I think it would have to be considered by the committee in order to be recommended to go forward.
But it's under the threshold, isn't it? I mean,
It is under the threshold. That's a good,
$2,200.
that's a valid point. Yeah. So,
I don't think it has to go to our committee.
so it may not have to go to your committee. That's a valid point.
Maybe look at.
So,
And I think we could expand extraordinary and unusual, a
I think the bottom
roof
line
repair
is the
could be
procurement
kind of
side of it.
extraordinary.
Well, that's the
It's
other
the procurement
aspect
side
of it, right?
It'd cost us double if we did it.
Once we expend town funds, can we reimburse him for that
No.
without having gone through procurement
think so.
process?
That's why I said before.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
That's my concern. I mean, I hope for his sake that he's able to get somebody to help cover that.
Donna seems to think he is.
Good, yeah. But I mean, a very generous donation nonetheless, and I think it's a point well made. Yeah. Any other public comment?
Just one last, I'm going to kind of pull the scab off again, but just from information that I have garnered over the last 24 hours or so, I think the number that you should seriously consider as you go forward is $840,000.
I appreciate your
So,
feedback.
okay, thank you.
All right. So hearing no further public comment, I am going to request a motion that we move from regular session into executive session to conduct strategy in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, being the police lieutenant contract pursuant to MGL Chapter 38, Section 21-2, and to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, being the town administrator's contract pursuant to the same statute, and then returning to regular session only to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote. How do you vote, Kirk?
Aye.
aye.
Harold votes aye, and I will vote aye. And so we are now going to take a brief recess in order to move to executive session.
This bio break was way over.
Jason